All right, so you ready to get into it? Today we're going to deep dive into something that's been around forever.
Yeah, always relevant.
Politics and religion, right? I mean, you want to try to understand how the world works. Like, this is a big one.
It's essential.
Yeah, so we're looking at this crazy connection between these two big forces that have shaped, like, literally everything: civilizations, conflicts, revolutions, all from our trusty source here. Politics and religion, a complicated relationship.
Great source.
Yeah, and we'll hit some seriously interesting questions along the way, like how did ancient Egyptian pharaohs use being gods to grab power?
Right.
It's like the mandate of heaven, but on the Nile.
Exactly.
And get this, we're going to track how Christianity went from like this tiny little group to like this tool of the Roman Empire.
It's a huge power shift.
Talk about a power move.
Right. It's fascinating how intertwined they've been right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like ancient Egypt, the pharaohs, they weren't just rulers, they were considered gods.
Wow, hold on. So like claiming to be a god was like the ultimate power move.
You got it.
Wow.
It wasn't just for show, it was a strategy for control.
Right.
By connecting themselves to Ra, the sun god, pharaohs got absolute obedience. I mean, you question the pharaoh, you're questioning the gods.
Oh, that makes sense.
This tactic, it shows up all over history.
Yeah.
Mandate of heaven in China. European monarchs saying they rule by God's grace. Same idea, different packaging.
So like a built-in you can't question me thing.
Yeah, no matter where you were.
But then what happens when a new religion pops up that challenges the system?
Ah, that's where Rome comes in.
Oh.
At first they were pretty tolerant of different religions as long as they didn't cause trouble.
Right.
But then came Christianity. This little group from Judea turned the whole empire upside down.
From underdog to top dog, huh? That's a heck of a story.
It is.
How did that even happen?
It's wild, right? Christianity started as a threat, but it gained influence.
Yeah.
And eventually became this major political force.
Wow.
Emperor Constantine's conversion in the 4th century, that was a turning point.
Right.
With his support, Christianity went from the margins to the mainstream. It became a state-sanctioned religion.
Wow.
And this fusion of church and state had consequences that lasted for centuries.
I can see how that could get messy.
Yeah.
Tying the empire's fate to one religion, like what happened when things went bad? Did people blame the emperor or the church?
That's the thing. When things went wrong, the blame shifted.
Oh, so
this tension. Who to blame, the political leader or the religious institution? It pops up again and again throughout history.
Yeah. Yeah. You see that everywhere.
We'll see.
Yeah, so we've got like god kings, this new religion shaking up an empire. It's already complicated.
Yeah.
But then the Middle Ages come along and things get even more intense.
Absolutely. The
Wow.
Middle Ages saw religion and politics fuse in a whole new way.
Okay.
The Catholic Church had immense power. It influenced everything from spiritual matters to law warfare, even daily life.
Now that's what I call influence.
Yeah.
What better example of this power dynamic than the Crusades?
Oh, yeah.
Like religion driving armies across continents?
The Crusades are the perfect example of how you could channel religious zeal for political purposes.
Okay.
The stated goal was reclaiming Jerusalem,
Right.
but there were also power plays happening.
Yeah.
Consolidating authority, suppressing dissent, uniting kingdoms under a religious banner.
So it was about more than just the Holy Land.
Exactly.
It was about earthly power dressed up as a holy war.
Yeah, that complex interplay between religious zeal and political strategy.
Right.
But this bond between religious and political power, it wouldn't last forever.
Because here comes the Protestant Reformation.
Oh, yeah.
To shake things up again.
Exactly. Figures like Martin Luther challenged the Catholic Church's authority.
Right.
It fractured that unified religious and political power structure in Europe.
So Luther's ideas, they weren't just theological. Right.
They had major political consequences.
Yes.
How did that change the relationship between rulers and the church?
It was a power shift. Kings and princes saw a chance to break free from the church's control. It led to the rise of national churches.
Right.
Imagine the implications that religion, once a unifying force, became a tool for political power struggles.
This feels like the start of something totally new.
Yeah.
What happened next?
That brings us to the Age of Enlightenment.
Okay.
Where reason and individual liberty were the big ideas.
Right.
Thinkers like John Locke and Voltaire argued for the separation of church and state. They challenged centuries of religious influence on politics.
It sounds like a clean break.
It does.
But history is rarely that neat.
You're right.
Did religion really just fade away?
Not really, despite this emphasis on secular governance.
Okay.
Religion never truly vanished from politics.
Right.
Even revolutions like the American and French revolutions.
That aimed for separation from the church. They still use religious language and imagery to inspire and unite people.
So even when trying to separate, there's still that pull towards religion.
Yeah.
It's like this universal language, no matter what the political system is.
It got a religion's ability to inspire and mobilize.
Yeah.
It stayed strong even as the world moved towards more secular governments.
Right.
And this sets the stage for the 20th century.
Okay. Things are about to get interesting.
Oh, yeah.
But let's pause here and pick up the 20th century in our next segment.
Sounds good.
All right, so we're back and ready to tackle the 20th century.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a time of massive upheaval, right? And religion was right there in the thick of it.
Oh, absolutely. A century of wars, revolutions, social movements.
Yeah.
And religion was a key player. You saw figures like Gandhi. His nonviolent resistance in India was deeply rooted in his spiritual beliefs.
Right. So religion could be a powerful force for good.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it wasn't always so noble.
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah.
The 20th century also showed us the darker side of this relationship.
Okay.
Regimes like Nazi Germany, they twisted religious symbols and rhetoric for their own horrific purposes. And then you have the rise of theocracies. Like Iran after the 1979 revolution.
Right.
Where religious law and political authority are basically the same thing.
It seems like a constant reminder that religion can be used for both good and evil.
Yeah.
It's all about context. Right?
Understanding the context is key.
But where does that leave us today? How does all this history play out in the modern world?
It's a bit of a paradox.
Okay.
In the 21st century, we're seeing more secularism in many parts of the world.
Right.
But religion keeps coming back, especially during times of crisis conflict elections.
So we can't just separate these two powerful forces.
Not that easy.
Why do you think that is? I mean, haven't we learned from history that mixing religion and politics can be a recipe for disaster?
It's more complicated than that. Religion, it's not just about beliefs.
Right.
It's woven into identity culture and often power structures.
Yeah.
Look at the USA, for instance.
Okay.
They have separation of church and state in their constitution.
Right.
But religion is still deeply embedded in American politics.
Oh, totally. God Bless America is practically a national motto.
Right.
And references to faith and values are everywhere in politics.
Exactly. And think about the big issues that dominate the political landscape.
Abortion.
Same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
These debates are often framed through a religious lens.
Right.
It influences public opinion and policy decisions.
And don't forget the influence of groups like evangelical Christians.
Oh, yeah.
They have a lot of political power, especially during elections.
Huge voting bloc.
Politicians know this, right?
Of course.
Tapping into religious identity is a powerful way to get votes.
Absolutely.
But across the pond, in Europe, it's a whole different story, right?
Yeah, very different.
Can you tell us about that?
Europe, especially countries like France, they've gone for a much stricter form of secularism. It's called laïcité.
Laïcité.
It's not just about separating church and state.
Okay.
It's about keeping religion almost completely out of public life.
I've heard of that, but I don't really get it. Can you explain it a little more?
Sure. So basically, laïcité tries to create a neutral public space.
Okay.
Where religious expression is limited.
Right.
This has led to some controversial policies like the ban on religious symbols.
Oh, wow.
Including headscarves.
Right.
In French schools.
That's a big step.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're really serious about separating religion and public life.
They are.
But it also seems like it could cause some tension, right?
It does. It raises tough questions about freedom of expression, religious identity, and what it means to have a truly secular society.
Like, are they protecting secularism or suppressing individual rights?
Exactly. There are good arguments on both sides.
It's a tough balance, isn't it?
It is.
Protecting individual freedoms while keeping a secular public sphere.
Very difficult.
But let's shift gears for a second. What about the Middle East?
Okay.
Where religion and politics seem even more intertwined.
The Middle East is a unique case.
Yeah.
You've got the legacy of the Iranian Revolution, which created a theocratic government where religious leaders have the ultimate authority.
Right. And then there's Saudi Arabia,
yes,
where the monarchy's power is tied to being the guardians of Islam's holiest sites.
Exactly.
But even in these systems where religion and politics are so closely linked, there are signs of change and tension, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely.
Especially among younger generations who are questioning things.
Yes. The Arab Spring uprisings, for example.
Right.
They showed a growing desire for political and social reforms, often challenging those traditional religious and political structures.
It's like even in places with centuries-old traditions, people want to redefine the relationship between religion and politics.
It is a reminder that things can change.
It feels like religion can be such a double-edged sword when it comes to politics.
Yeah.
On one hand, it can inspire amazing movements for peace and justice.
Absolutely.
But on the other, it can fuel conflict and division.
You're exactly right.
Like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Yeah.
It's often seen through a religious lens.
Right.
But there are much deeper historical, political, and territorial issues at play.
There are layers to it.
Religion becomes this powerful way to frame the narrative.
It does.
But the issues are far more complex.
They are.
And then you have extremist groups like ISIS, who twist religious beliefs to justify their violence and political agendas.
It's a manipulation of faith for their own goals.
That's why it's so important to think critically when religion is used to justify actions.
It is. We need to look beyond the surface.
Right.
Examine the real motivations and power dynamics.
But let's not forget the incredible good that religion can do.
Of course.
Think about figures like Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
They embody how faith can inspire nonviolent resistance and promote understanding.
Powerful examples.
And religious organizations are often at the forefront of humanitarian aid and social justice efforts around the world.
They do so much good.
It shows the power of compassion and service rooted in religious ideals.
Absolutely.
It's a complex picture, isn't it?
It is.
Even in secular societies, religious values like compassion, forgiveness, a sense of shared humanity.
Yeah.
They shape our morals and our ethical choices.
They do. It's like you can't completely separate the two no matter how hard you try.
You've got that right. Even as we strive for separation, religion's influence on our values and worldview is still huge.
Huge impact.
But there's another twist to this story.
Okay.
This fascinating trend of how people are engaging with religion and spirituality today.
Interesting, right?
We're seeing this rise in personalized spirituality, where people are blending beliefs and creating their own paths.
Yeah.
Outside of traditional institutions.
It's like they're taking what speaks to them. Right. From different traditions and creating their own unique spiritual identities.
That's the spiritual but not religious movement, right?
Exactly.
And it's growing. It could reshape the political landscape in some major ways.
It could.
We're already seeing it in grassroots movements and activism, driven by personal values and beliefs, often rooted in spirituality and this sense of interconnectedness.
Powerful stuff.
This is where things get really interesting.
It does.
But we have to pause here for now. Join us for the final part of this deep dive as we explore the future of this relationship between politics and religion and how this trend of individual spirituality might change everything. Okay, so welcome back, everybody. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it? We've gone from ancient god kings to revolutions.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride through history.
Yeah, from the rise of Christianity to like all the complexities of today's world. And here we are wrapping up our deep dive into this crazy relationship between politics and religion. And the big question now is, what does the future hold?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, this relationship, it's always evolving. It's shaped by global events, by technology, by changing cultural norms. It's like we're at a crossroads with so many paths ahead of us.
So many paths. Okay, so what are some of the biggest trends, the biggest challenges that are going to shape this intersection in the years to come? We talked about that rise in personalized spirituality last time.
Right.
How does that fit into this whole picture?
Well, one major trend is religious pluralism. As societies become more diverse, the political landscape has to adapt to a wider range of beliefs and practices.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not just about different faiths coexisting. It's also about those who identify as secular or non-religious finding their place in the conversation.
So everyone has a voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It requires a real commitment to tolerance, respect, and understanding.
That sounds pretty idealistic, especially when you consider how much influence religious groups can have in politics.
Okay.
How do we balance protecting religious freedom without one group forcing their beliefs on everyone else?
It's a delicate balance, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Leaders and policymakers, they have to find ways to navigate this pluralism without playing favorites while still upholding fundamental rights and freedoms.
Sounds tricky.
It is. The challenge is making sure that religious freedom doesn't become a way to impose beliefs on others.
Right.
It's about finding a middle ground where everyone's perspective can be heard.
Okay, so open dialogue and mutual respect. Those are key.
Absolutely.
But what about the role of technology in all this?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, social media is so powerful these days.
Huge.
How is it shaping this whole intersection of politics and religion?
Technology's a game changer, no question. Platforms like social media have become these powerful tools for religious groups to connect, mobilize, and even influence political discussions.
Yeah, for sure.
We've seen online campaigns rally support for causes, raise awareness of social justice issues, even sway election results.
It's a lot of power.
It is. It's a whole new frontier for this age-old relationship.
But there's a flip side to all this connectivity too, right?
There is.
I mean, we've seen how fast misinformation and hate speech can spread online.
Oh, yeah.
Often using religion as like a cover.
Absolutely. Technology, it amplifies both the good and the bad.
It's a double-edged sword.
It is. It allows for more connection and understanding, but it also creates these echo chambers where extreme views can take root and just spread like wildfire.
Yeah, no filter.
Exactly. And that's why we need critical thinking, media literacy, and responsible online engagement now more than ever.
Being careful what you click on.
It's crucial. We can't just passively take in information, especially when it comes to sensitive topics like religion and politics.
We have to be smart about it, right? Question our sources, consider different viewpoints, even when we disagree.
Yeah.
It's about having respectful conversations, even when we have totally opposite beliefs.
That's the key.
But okay, so beyond pluralism and technology, what other factors are shaping the future of this relationship?
Well, this is where the rise of individual conscience and ethical decision-making comes in. As traditional religious institutions keep evolving and more people create their own spiritual paths, those individual values and beliefs, they'll have a bigger impact on shaping political landscapes.
So it's less about following a set doctrine and more about applying your own personal ethics to the political world.
That's it. Individual values are becoming even more important in this complex landscape.
So how do we navigate that?
Well, as the world grapples with these huge issues like climate change, economic inequality, political polarization, finding ways to bridge divides and harness the power of both the sacred and the secular becomes even more crucial.
Yeah, it feels like those lines are getting blurrier and blurrier.
They are. And the question isn't whether religion and politics will intersect, but how we can manage that intersection in a way that promotes peace, justice, and human flourishing.
Well, we've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah.
From the ancient world to the digital age.
It's been quite the journey.
And what's clear is that this relationship between politics and religion, it's far from over.
It's ongoing.
And its future depends on the choices we make, both individually and as a society.
Every choice matters.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It is. But as you continue to explore the world, remember to engage with curiosity, empathy, and a critical mind. This intersection of politics and religion, it's dynamic and multifaceted, full of potential for both progress and conflict. Understanding this relationship, it's essential for navigating the future. And your journey of understanding it doesn't stop here. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep those minds engaged.
Wow, what a powerful way to wrap things up.
I hope it gives everyone something to think about.
It definitely does. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And remember, in a world where the lines between the sacred and the secular are constantly shifting, staying informed and engaged is more important than ever. Until next time, deep divers.